Hello, welcome to AOS Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. It is Tuesday. That means I've got a half man, half machine, half calculator in the house, Mr. LLV, and he's going to be talking to me about the Age of Sigmar stats. Well, the competitive stats. The narrative stats are I'm a wizard and I do fireball, I think. Hello, Mr. LLV.
Hello, how are you this morning?
Oh, I am so excited about. We missed the stat show last week because it was all a bit of a kerfuffle. But we're back, and I am pumped. And I know for a fact soon I'm going to get to see you in a week or so at Bobo. So very excited. Also excited about your grudge match versus Kerry at Bobo. So all overall, Warhammer and life. I'm very excited. I also hoovered the office, so it looks nice.
Got to keep it clean.
Yeah, you got to keep your work environment clean, right? It feels nice. I feel healthy. It feels good. I'm really excited to talk about this. I'm good. Are you good?
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right.
There was too much stats to compute last week, so we've rolled them all into this week.
Good. I just want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Scrivo, Squigs, Colonel Cabbage, Yafest, Alcanaut, and Lanes89. He says, hello, you honest bastards. That's true enough. I want to give a big shout out to everyone on Patreon and Twitch. You guys are wonderful. I want to say a quick thank you to Martin Furnival, who's just joined the Patreon crew. So you guys are brilliant, and everyone who just jumps onto Twitch and has a little hello. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, leave a like or a comment. That'd be pretty cool of you. These are the comprehensive stats. I was having an amazing game this weekend, LOV, at Warhammer World, where I heard someone behind me boasting gleefully about having played not Gloomspite Gits, but the other type of goblins. Fuck, what are they called?
The Git mob?
The Git mob, and then having to make you put them into the stats table. And it was boasting to his opponent. He's like, I think you'll find that's my stat. So I love that it has that effect on people.
That Git.
He is a git. That's a fact. So hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us. So if you go onto the honestwargamer.com, you can see the Age of Sigmar stats, where it says stats. If you click the tab, and the most recent stat is the 7th of May. Table put together by the wonderful moderator we have on the channel, Scrivo. LLV does all the stats. Scrivo puts them up for us. And then we're going to be talking through all the cool things that you can see and seeing how we feel about competitive wargaming. I've heard Iron Jaws are making a comeback, LLV, am I right?
It depends which end of the results you're looking at, I guess.
Well, if you're in Australia, you turn it upside down, they're at the top.
Turn it upside down, and we're good to go. Yeah, if you want to talk about the most zero wins or getting up there, we can definitely talk about Iron Jaws in that breath, I think.
Good. I want to say hello to Joel McGrath. He says, hey guys, looking forward to listening to this one tomorrow. I'm glad about that. And I want to say hello to Brad Glover. If we were to start track favourite game votes and army nominations, pretty certain Brad Glover himself would be the Ben Saver of wargaming.
Excellent.
Yeah. So it's good. I'm glad he's here in the chat. Should we look at these stats then, sir?
Yeah. I should do a couple of shout outs first
for
people that sent these wonderful stats in. So we had the Aussie stats last week. That's the Briss Vegas and the Border Wars. The Runax Wargaming helped me get all of the Briss Vegas stuff together, and the infamous Travis Cooper of Heralds of War fame helped with the Border War stats. And
he's got some lovely cats.
Oh yeah, I guess you'd have met them.
Yeah, I had dinner at his house. Lovely man, lovely wife, great guy.
Fantastic. Then we have War Score, actually, of the providers of the South Coast GT, and lovely chap that runs War Score got in touch with me. So I know I've even criticised them, and some people criticise War Score for. It's a little bit difficult to discern results from because it's built with a different format in mind. But he's actually working now to make it a little easier so other TOs can use War Score and get things like wins. So he provided all that data to us. So big thank you to War Score.
Holla.
And we've got this week we have Steve Wren, he's actually providing us with the Heat 2 results. He emailed me at my time 1 a.m. this morning, so obviously they're not they're not obviously in these numbers that we're going to look at today, but they will be coming. So I do want to kind of give a precursor shout out to Steve Wren and Games Workshop to giving us those results, because in ages past they were under lock and key, so it's great that they're sharing information. And the ever tireless Nagash of Sweden, otherwise known as Jonas Paro, he always provides us all the Swedish results every time, and he's come through again with the Fantasia results this week. So
Oh, well,
I think I've got everyone there.
Big shout out to that. I love that. Thank you very much. And anyone else out there, if you have got stats or events running in anywhere in the world, you can follow LLV on Twitter, send him a message, and then he'll start incorporating them in.
And on that note, Mr. Scrivo actually has us an email now. So instead of trying
hold fire on that. Hold fire on that. I'm going to get his emails at thehonestwargamer.com. It'll be easier.
Okay, so we have an email, but it's coming soon.
Coming very soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Hold fire. Don't worry, we got that. So there'll be an really easy way soon. We're just going to get an email. So instead of having to follow LLV on Twitter, you can just whack the email in and email LLV directly.
So if you don't read all the shit I write on Twitter, you can just bypass all that and email us the results. You don't even have to like me. Just send me the numbers.
Good. All right. Well, hello, everyone in the Twitch chat. Are you guys ready to get into it? LLV, I'm ready to get into it. So we missed a week, so we're going to look through. The Bris Vegas Open was won by Fireslayers. I got to tell you, I know the guy that won with Fireslayers, and he is a fantastic chap. But we saw the unit of 30 Grimgas. Not Grimgas, that's the wrong type, but the Berserkers. Berserkers doing really well there. And then you can see... Oh, no, you can't see that mirrored. There were Fireslayers at Riptide GT, and it was the same... Or not the identical list, but they had that big block of 30 in there as well. So really interesting seeing those actually now. Battletome out, bodies on the board, kicking it, which is really cool, I think. Nice seeing them. It's starting to mix up how that table looks, because if you've actually looked at that table over the past few weeks, it's been a bit bland, I won't lie to you. So it's nice seeing the Fireslayers on there, those little ginger crazies just doing what they do. And then Flesh Eater Courts and Daughters of Cain again returning as per to kick it at the Bris Vegas Open. So that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. We've Daughters have started coming out of woodwork slowly but surely. So they took a third place at Bris Vegas. Oddly, there was also not oddly, I guess, but there was also a second Fireslayers player at Bris Vegas, and they also went 4-1. So they actually did quite well at that event.
That's very, very cool. All right, sweet. Yeah, well done. I think Fireslayers are going to be, especially in the right scenarios. Some scenarios are going to be problematic, but that's why it's going to be cool getting the packs out beforehand. And I think based on a pack, you'll see more or less Fireslayers players as they work it through. But then I haven't actually fully run through them on the tabletop yet, so I'd like to see that in action before I make that a cast iron call.
Right.
Next up in Border Wars, you have Flesh Eater Courts, Maggotkin and Nurgle. That's cool. With Flesh Eater Courts 5-0, 40 players in Australia there. Were they the only 5-0, or did Nurgle actually get a 5-0 as well?
Maggotkin Flesh Eaters were definitely 5-0. I think Maggotkin only got the 4-1. Don't quote me on that though.
Oh, okay. All right, sweet. Well, that's good, because it's been... I think Nurgle are not in a tough spot gaming-wise. I just think that they don't really have... There aren't the attractive... When you're talking about winning games, having that big block of Fireslayers beating the snot out of people's fun, those dragons beating people is fun. Nurgle win games in slightly different ways. They can have offensive builds, but they're very much like a better defensive build army. And I feel that just isn't attractive for a lot of gamers to play. So I can see why we do see some of them, but the ones that we see performing well tend to be more orientated around the defensive build, and I can see why people haven't jumped on that bandwagon as much as you would say the Flesh Eater Courts or something similar, because you are getting to romp around with a Jarragon and beat the snot out of people, and that's fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reactive as opposed to proactive, I think, with Nurgle. And then we've also seen. I don't have the list from Border War, but I will confirm actually, just to give the correct props. The Maggotkin did 5-0 Border War. I've got the table in front of me.
Oh, excellent!
Fellow called Jordan Burgess.
Oh, go for it, Jordan. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I don't know his list, but the list that I've seen doing very well with Maggotkin usually resolves around a thricefold befoulment, which is 3 great and clean ones.
Do they tend to win? They tend to 4-1 roughly.
Every time I see them doing well, when I get to see the lists, it always seems to be that list. So okay. Read into that what you will. There might be a list underground out there. I don't know what Jordan's list was, for instance, so it could be something completely different.
Okay. I just want to talk about Horus86 in the chat. He said, I went down to that Fire Slayer list. They got me down so much that I bought an army of them. He's like, I'm all the way in. Yeah, they got me so deep. And then Elfbro says defensive Sylvaneth versus defensive Nurgle are the most exciting games you can ever play. I would like to double down and say that you could also throw defensive Gloomspite Gits into it, and you could have comfortably one of the most boring Triumph and Treachery games ever to happen in the history of all time. That would be really fun if anyone would like to play that. We'll do that on the show. It will take about 3 weeks to conclude.
Is that where you just have to roll a 6 to hit them?
It's just where everyone's rolling dice and nothing's ever happening. It's just very fun. It's kind of like those cartoons where you see the guy running with his legs in the air, but nothing's actually happening. Right, so Flesh Eater Courts, Nurgle, and Daughters of Cain third twice again, which is cool, and a bit of a foreshadowing for what we're going to see in a minute. So then the hero phase over in Ireland, great group of guys. Gloomspite Gits won an event.
Yes, yeah. I don't have their full I have their full breakdown, but it's in a horrible format. It takes a long time to extrapolate. So as of right now, we're going to look at the podium as we're looking here. But unfortunately, these numbers are not going to be transposed into the main tables as far as percentages go. Mm-hmm. It won't make a huge difference, if I'm honest, because it's only a 21-player event. But that's why it's orange on the table for those following at home. But Gloomspite gets first win in AOS ever, I think.
Congratulations. So whoever won that deserves a mad set of props. That's excellent work. And then Flesh Eater Courts and Legion Nagash, kind of the 2018 boogeymen, still knocking around, still letting people know that they exist, coming in third. So, yeah, really cool that Gloomspite are up there and that they've gone and got that win. And because when we now talk about the South Coast GT next and the AOS GT He2 finals, which were a week apart, but you saw that Destruction never even entered into the top kind of 40 of either of those two events. So it just does make the win by the Gloomspite Gits over in Ireland that much more sweet, realistically. Because Destruction of the larger events, Destruction have struggled to even get into the kind of top third of the results. And I mean Destruction as an entire Grand Alliance, not mixed Destruction. I'm talking no Beastcode Raiders, no Gloomspite Gits, no Ogres, no one. None of them are getting up there. So they're in a tough spot at the minute. So South Coast GT.
Yeah.
South Coast GT.
South Coast GT, yeah. Daughters of Cain are back.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they've ever
really went away.
No, they never went away, did they?
No, but I'm just paraphrasing Twitter that everyone forgot about Daughters apparently, but
I don't think we did.
Keep mentioning them every week. Yeah, every week.
When I see some of these conversations had, I'm like, you could. There are two types of people, and I see it a lot on the Facebook groups at the minute as well. I see someone say some outrageous statement like, "I think you'll find this army's really good," and then you'll just see someone sweep in and go, "By the way, the stats are they only win 40% of their games, so you're wrong 1,000 times over." And it's really fun watching people like having the tools to make good, accurate information assessments. I really enjoy that. It's really fun watching people like have those convos. I played a Daughters of Cain player at the Heats just recently. And I was like, "Hey, by the way, Matt, you should beat me like 70% of the time." And he's like, "Okay," and he did beat me, right? So that's fair, right?
Yeah, but you as a player going in at this point at least have something to strive for, right? Like, I watched the Honest Wargamer show yesterday, and yeah, although you was disappointed losing, I think you still took something away in that it was very close.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. You could see why, like on the tabletop, I was playing well, and you could just see why they were doing so well because he wasn't. I would like we had a chat about it. It was like 2 or 3 dice rolls on a rerollable 5-up save swings the game the whole other way. But just some armies don't get to even have a blast at doing the second set of 5-up saves, but that army does, and it's just that consistency that it's really good. And then if you just roll a little bit well as well, it's insane. So and you get more opportunities to roll well. That's the kind of key differential. Obviously, not including rerolls after rerolls, but that's why they've never gone away. They've been at the top of our table since we basically started the stats, right?
Yeah, as far as pure win percentage goes, and as far as pure podiums go, the Daughters of Cain have always been up there, so they've never really gone away. I think what happened is a little bunch of new armies came out, and we didn't actually see a lot of Daughters players. Like, people were trying different things, or maybe they thought they were a little too powerful themselves, so they were kind of self-regulating. And now that the field has changed, they're getting their armies back out again, and we're seeing them hit the tabletop again, which is good. I think in my head I would always rather play a Daughters of Cain matchup where at least I'm interacting with the player, right? Everything's combat based, and yeah, it's tough, but at least they're not hitting you before you get to do anything, or shooting you off the table and putting vortexes so you can't move. So I think good armies are fine as long as they're interactive.
Listen,
My opinion.
if Skaven and Flesh Eater Course have done anything, they've made Daughters of Cain seem nicer, which is a hard thing to do. So Daughters of Cain are first, Daughters of Cain in second, and both of them went 6-0.
6-0, yeah. Jack Armstrong and Mr. Ben Sava getting the second place. Hashtag so hot right now. I think every time he plays his Daughters, he podiums, which is always.
There was the one event of Blood and
see.
Glory. I don't think he got the opportunity to because I think he lost a Daughters mirror match. But yeah,
okay. Yeah, thank you.
Consistently solid with that army and embarrassingly good at painting. And then Skaven in third place. So Daughters Skaven. Which is unsurprising to me. And then we have the Heat 2. Someone's just pointing out in the chat, Alcanaut. The Australian GT results. We haven't got them yet. They've been really tough to track down. So we are getting those.
Yeah, I don't even have... I know Gemma came second. And that's
I know Seraphon came third.
Okay. So, yeah, Flesh Eaters... if we say Seraphon third, Flesh Eaters second. I don't actually know who came first.
I do.
Oh, go on then.
It was. Nope. It's in one of my little chats that I have with 1,000 different people every day. No. It was Flesh Eaters. Thank you very much. So it was
Flesh Eaters.
Yeah, it was Gristle Gore Flesh Eaters who came first, Blistikin Flesh Eaters who came second, but then a hero amongst us, a Seraphon player, was like, "I'm not letting this shit happen. Yeah, I'm in here. I'm back. Don't forget me." So Seraphon came third, and while Lubinsky, thank you for subscribing for 3 months, by the way. And while it's absolutely okay that you can play Flesh Eater Course in Kickface, and congratulations to the winners and second place, Seraphon sneaking their way in there and making sure people don't forget about them is great. So love and reward to that person too.
Yeah, we will get the Aussie Heat finals eventually. Our man on the ground, Clint, the legend Clint Mallet of Heralds of War. He's been providing all of the Australian heat info for us, and he says the finals are on the way. He's just, I think he's busy packing at the moment. I think he's UK bound soon himself.
That's good. Yeah, everyone's coming for the Bobos. It's gonna be fun. So we saw Dortmund against Skaven. Then when we go to obviously in Australia this weekend, we then have had Flesh Eat Courts, and Seraphon. Then the GT. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to mention on South Coast GT, something we're not seeing here is the top 10 was heavily, let's say, infested by Skaven. And I think the most beautiful man in the world, Dan, at AOS Shorts, actually monikered it. Could this be the rise of the rats? And then that leads us into GWAOS GT Heat 2.
Well, so we talked about, and again, if you've been listening to the shows, and if you go back and listen to the stat show, I've constantly said that I think Skaven's the better book. When the good players start playing with the Skaven, we're going to start to see them dominate the top tables, and that's what we saw at the Heat 2. Skaven, there was a huge percentage. It was something crazy, like 40 out of the 100 armies were either Skaven or Flesh Eater Courts. So just some absolutely nuts numbers, and maybe at some point LLV will have a quick look at that, maybe next week.
Once I start getting the bigger breakdowns from the AOS GT, as I said, Steve Wren's got them inbound for us, so I'll get all those numbers out to take a look at. I think sometimes what we miss in the stats as far as the stories are concerned, what people don't see is all those armies on 4 and 0. So you get situations where you might only get, let's say, 2 or 3 Flesh Eater Corps in the top 10, but it's because they've all knocked each other out in round 4.
Yeah, or they played each other earlier. Yeah, it was a huge concentration of both of those two armies, and so you did tend to see either Skaven or Flesh Eater Corps going up against each other. So that's really fun. However, you saw Skaven and Skaven with Legion and Nagash jumping into the third place, and all of those were 5-0. And they were all tied on sports votes, and then it came down to kill points. Realistically, so I think that's really interesting. Oh no, actually, no, yeah, that's right. And then in fourth place, there was also another 5-0 from Flesh Eater Courts, which isn't on there. No, he came in fifth place because it's heavily soft scored. I'm going to say, by the way, I'm going to say anything that's soft scored is heavily soft scored. Anything that changes a 5-0 from going below someone who went 4-1 is a heavy soft score, in my opinion. Because in fourth place it was someone. So heavily soft scored.
We've seen that a few times. We've seen that gets caught up in the when we start looking at the actual win percentages and 5+ wins at least. So, but that's a good point of note then. So Flesh Eater Courts actually did 5-0 at not only South Coast GT but also the AOS GT Heat 2. So just because they didn't podium, Flesh Eaters still 5-0'd, and I think it's maybe only 1, maybe 2 events now since their release that they haven't 5-0'd, which is incredible.
Yes, it is insane. And then over in Sweden at the Fantasia Fanatic, Flesh Eater Courts win the event. Flesh Eater Courts come second, and Blades of Corn, really nice to see Blades of Corn up there. I won't lie to you, because that's a very dominated field, and I'm looking forward to their new book being used appropriately. I don't think it's as good. Personally, I know a lot of people keep talking about it. I think the issue is that they're more glass cannony than you'll see the Flesh Eater Courts units are. Although they've got the access to the summoning that's slightly different. But I don't know, we'll see. We'll see with the Blades of Corn book. I'm not 100% confident about where that sits. I don't think it's quite in that top bracket of books. But I'm gonna have a deep dive on that at some point, and then I'll come back to that. So again, asterisks over that opinion, and then congratulations. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They're just on the peripherals. It's like, I think the top. You've got the top, if you want to call them S, and then you've got the next ones below that. And I think Blades of Corn and those armies like that, they have a chance at maybe sneaking into the podiums, but I don't think they're going to do it consistently like flesh eaters like Skaven and so forth. So, and just a big shout out to Sweden in general. They keep putting on these, 30 to 40 man tournaments every couple of weeks.
They do actually. We get
list.
yeah.
And they always have a decent turnout, and they always have like a decent meta. So, the quiet Swedish up there representing AOS big time.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic thing that they're doing. Listen, Jonathan Etland, everyone who I've met from Sweden has been fantastic. That's just been my constant experience, and the fact that they've got their own Swedish podcast for AOS, they're working really hard to expand and increase that scene. I think it's good as well that we're seeing, not the kind of like that we see in other countries outside of just the UK, Australia, and America being talked about. And I think that's one of the great things we do on this show is we keep finding all these different places and we bring them all together, and then you kind of centralize it, and the Irish in there as well, and just continuously encouraging those. So that's fun, and those guys should be proud. I also want to say a big shout out to Horus86 in the chat, who said he played against the Fireslayer list. Andy, who was running it, he said he nailed me with those berserkers. Totally made me feel like the end of the film Logan, when he's like, "Is this what it feels like to die?" And everyone in the chat is talking about how to kill FEC, and it's loads of shots. So then finally, Riptide GT over in the USA, big shout out to my Merry Bros, hope you're well. Idneth Deepkin, which I think is a really good counter pick at the minute, as an army book against. They came in first. I don't know who did it, but congratulations. I think that's a solid choice. And then
that was Mr. Matt Pashby.
Oh, it was Matt. Yeah, we talked about it last night, actually. I forgot in 12 hours. So congratulations to Matt. Legions and Nagash second. Fireslayers, again, it was that Zerka build I talked before in third place. Not to take away anything from the Legions and Nagash army, that I assume it was the SO 2018 build with an Ethereal VLOS and a couple of units of Reapers, but that doesn't mean it was that. I just don't know ATM. Oh no, it was actually that. I read it out last night. It was exactly that. So that list is still doing solid work, right?
Yeah, and I think that was Alex Gonzalez. I don't know if it's the same Alex Gonzalez as the Adepticon tournament organizer, but that was the guy's name. So congrats, whichever Alex Gonzalez you were.
Yeah, whoever that be. But Idneth, I think, solid choice. Matt does a lot of research, works really hard thinking through AOS. Great dude. And I think Idneth are in a really solid place to fight most of these armies, I would say. Skaven, little bit tougher, I would say. Solid. A nicer mix than we've seen, but we have seen that over 2 weeks. So that's been good. But it's nice seeing Skaven actually do what that we've prophesized that they will do, which is absolutely take names. So LOV, the next table, how have we seen that change up?
Yeah, so it's changed quite a lot in AOS 2.2 specifically, but if we look at the main table first, as far as the whole combined, there's not a lot of movement at the top. I think the Daughters of Cain, Flesh Eaters, Legions have kind of solidified themselves in the overall, full combined. But then when we go and look at AOS 2.2, I think those top 6 armies is the meta as far as once you get up to 3 and 4 wins.
Right.
These are the armies you're going to need to be playing. Host of Slanesh could be an outlier, but I'd still count them in because of the new book. I can see their rise in popularity, meaning that you're going to see that you've got Flesh Eaters, Legions and Nagash are popping up here and there. Skaven definitely, Daughters of Cain definitely, and Idneth Deepkin. And they all kind of sit in this bubble where they're good against all the armies, and then each one of those seems to be good against another one. So, I mean, to paraphrase it quickly, I think that Flesh Eater Courts is beat up on Idneth a little. Idneth beat up on Skaven a little. Skaven beat up on Flesh Eater Courts a little. And Daughters of Cain kind of sit in this little gatekeeper position in that if I roll lots of 5+, I'm just going to beat you all.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they're Tough place. Tough place. Listen, so Skaven jumping up there, which I like in 2.2. Flesh Eater Courts, just crazy domination at the top. And then, as we've seen, leading into Bobo, I know that's not this weekend, it's the weekend after, you're seeing Daughters of Cain and Flesh Eater Courts, the prophesized, both got first places up there. 12 and 12. I'm very excited to see who takes that away. It's a meteoric rise that the Flesh Eater Courts have done. It's just insane. Idneth jumping up, I really like as well. Again, I think I talked about eels. If you go and listen to AOS 2.0 release show, I'm like, you all need to be aware of eels. Like, just be aware of them. But we're still dealing with them. Pretty certain General's Handbook is about 2 months away. So, and I'm pretty certain some of those eels, even a 20-point hike on each unit could be pretty destructive for that build, but we'll see what else they get. And obviously Host of Slanesh sat there in 5th place in the 2.2 charts, but rocking over in the overall, they're where are they in the overalls?
They're around 10th.
Yeah. So a lot of people bigging them up. A lot of people reckon they are the future. We shall see. We'll see how that pans out, right? Will they have them? Do you reckon they're going to have the meteoric rise that we've seen from Flesh Eater Courts?
No, I don't think we'll see that ever.
That was the most flat pad no. If you've just bought,
it's just crazy though. Like you can't. With AOS 2.1 and 2.2, we're talking like literally, I think over 16,000 results at this point. We've got just so much going on, right? A whole year.
So much data. So much data.
Yeah. But Flesh Eater Courts have done what Daughters of Cain did in that entire time in, what are we on now? Week 7, week 8? Like, it's insane, right? It's every single week since their book has come out, they've posted 5-0s and multiple podiums.
Everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world.
Everywhere, yeah. This isn't just, oh, well, Ben Sava's too good of a player, that's why Daughters of Cain. No, this is everybody. This is freaking kids going out and just buying Flesh Eater Courts and
It is.
Cats and dogs living together.
Yeah, there is a machine gun available that you could go buy, and more than likely the book came out before, after the General's Handpoints books was written. So probably it will be an issue in the future as well. So, hashtag Bat Boys. Thank you, Horus86. The Bat Boys are in it. So bring out your guns. I've said this a couple of weeks ago. Bring out your guns. Also kill the hags. That's a really solid choice for dealing with the daughters.
And that's one of the reasons Skaven are well positioned right now, right? They have that reach. They've got all the spells as well.
Which is reach.
Reach.
People need to stop thinking about the spells as being different to the shooting. If you're doing ranged mortal wound damage and you're doing like several D3 mortal wounds at range, that's shooting. Like a Thunder Tusk is a crazy amount of points for one shot that hits on a 2-up that does a flat 6 mortal wounds. But Skaven can put out 4 or 5 spells for that points cost at the same range that do D3 mortal wounds to multiple units. So you're realistically talking about they have way better magical shooting, and a Tzeentch gunline has not been something that we've talked about or seen for several years, maybe 2 or 3 years. And when Tzeentch were playing really well, they were doing it through board control as opposed to through magical gunline. But at one point there was a magical gunline build, and that's definitely back now. That's what the Skaven book is. It's a magical gunline army with the best combat in the game.
Well, Skaven have been Disciples of Tzeentch have been popping up with that magic heavy list. It's just Skaven do it better. I keep hearing, oh, well, Gloomspites are just as good. It's like, well, no, they're not, because Skaven get all the endless spells that Gloomspite get, plus they get bonuses to casting, plus they get 80 bodies on the board, plus they get bodies that when you kill them, they kill you back. They just get too much, right? So I think Skaven... I don't think Skaven would be in the position it was in if, let's say, the whole book was maybe 10 to 15% higher on the points. I think at that point, you start having to make some decisions, whereas now you can just have it all, it seems.
Yeah, anyway, let's move on. 2.2 overall
Yeah.
breakdown. Looking at the meta percentage, which at this point, this 2.2 is everything that's been done since Christmas for you guys to be aware. And Flesh Eater Court's now sat at 6%. The most popular army is still Legions of Nagash, but oh no, it's not. Is it Stormcast now?
No, it's still Stormcast, yeah. They keep going up and down between the two of them.
Okay, all right, so very, very close.
Very close, yeah.
Very
We're talking
close.
0.4%, right?
Especially as both of those two are books that you... what Legions of Nagash is almost effectively an entire Grand Alliance in of itself, and you kind of get elements of that in the starter box, and obviously Stormcast, you get that in the starter box as well, and they're the poster children. It's interesting that Stormcast, if I was Games Workshop, I'd be very interested in that. They're the poster boys, they've got one of the deepest armies, they've got one of the widest model collections, and they still only... I mean, they're almost the most popular, but they're having to fight it out, which I think is quite interesting, realistically. But maybe it's just because they are not crazy competitive at the minute. But they've got a very good... And as the chat are currently saying at the minute, they're talking about long strikes, and if they're not talking about Aether Wings, they should talk about Aether Wings. You've got some solid shooting from Stormcast that can help deal with some of these threats, but they do struggle against Mortal Wounds, and probably Skaven are the better book out of all of them, and Skaven can deal with them quite comfortably, I'd argue, but that's just me. However, Legion of Nagash, Stormcast, 10%, that's pretty cool in what you're likely to see at an event. But LOV, I won't lie to you, I think the overall breakdown is a little bit too full of event information ATM, and I think that you're going to see some of those numbers be slightly higher, I'd argue.
As far as current events?
Yeah, in the next few weeks, I would expect to see both a huge amount of Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven.
And we have seen that jump up. I mean, in context, we're looking at Flesh Eaters went over the weeks since their books released. They went from somewhere below 2% up to 6%, which is a huge rise. Similar with Skaven, they were like on around 1%. Actually, Skaven were on 0% because they didn't exist. But between like Pestilence and Scryer armies, they were around 1-2%. So again, they've jumped up as well. And we did, if we look at when we get the full results from the Heat, we'll do a full breakdown, and at some point I'll do a full breakdown of South Coast. Both of those events had, I think, close to 10% Skaven and Flesh Eater Courts.
However, I've seen some of the list entries for Bobo, which will be the world's largest Age of Sigmar event, probably rocking something like 200 people. So it's going to be twice the size, effectively, of South Coast or the GT Heats. And I think there are at least 10 Gutbuster armies. So sometimes it's not only about the overall likelihood that you're going to see some armies. It's all about the events you attend. And some events are very much billed as more enjoyable. So just be conscious of that, which I think is very, very fun.
I think once everybody submits their list, and I hear there's a big penalty happening if you don't get your list in by this end of this week. Warning to everyone. But once all the lists are submitted, I'll do up a analysis the week before Bobo, so hopefully we can get that on next week's show.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll sort that out. Right, so let's look through some of the other stuff. Blaze of Corn, their percentage is coming up in their popularity, 7% nearly. They've always settled around the 5% mark, but I think since their new book, you're going to see more of those, which I'm excited about as well. Tzeentch really at the kind of bottom end of the Chaos Gods at the moment, in how much you're likely to see them, mainly because most of their really good units have just been incorporated into Beasts of Chaos armies at the minute. It's a newer book, and everything inside Beasts of Chaos is made better if you take the Zangor part of it, which I think is interesting. Since the start of AOS 2, more Kharadron Overlords than we've ever seen. They were effectively dead in the water, or people described them as dead in water, and I assume I was one of those people as well. Nearly a year ago, but now we're seeing more of those, I think, which is nice. 2% of the meta is Kharadron Overlords, which I think is really cool. Sylvaneth still sat at 5%, and with a new battle tome coming out soon, I think that's cool. I think they're going to be even more popular in the future as people are going to bust out their old Sylvaneth armies and reuse them. So I think that's pretty good. And then looking at 5+ wins in 2.2, Flesh Eater Courts are laughably high, sat there at 20%.
Yeah, that's insane. And it's not even all of 2.2 if you think about it, right? It's like the last 4 weeks as opposed to the last 4 months.
It is.
Well, sorry, 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
They've had half the time everybody else has to do 20% of the wins.
They're sat there on a 63% win rate. Only Daughters of Cain have posted a higher win rate at 65%. To give you some sort of indication of how good that is, because sometimes, and also, Host of Slanesh are also sat on a 60% win rate before the battle tomes come out, which is crazy good. And to give you some sort of indication of how that compares to other competitive sports. So if anything is floating anywhere between the 50 and 60% basically in any competitive sport is bonkers. Realistically, 50%, you're like, okay, that's pretty solid. So if you're talking about football, if you're talking about American football, if you're talking about League of Legends, if you're talking about StarCraft, if you're talking about a bunch of different things, win rates that exceed 60% are in the crazy sphere. Yeah, I'm trying very hard to avoid the term broken because it's a very loaded term, especially in our hobby. But yes, they are very, 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 very strong. And Idneth are flirting with that as well at 59%, which I think is really interesting. Oliver, you got any thoughts on that?
I don't have kind of fluctuate. Sometimes they do break that 60. I think they were like 61% a couple of weeks ago, but you do get, if we don't know what people are using, some people might pick up just an all shark army and get 1 win or 0 wins, right? And that's what's normalized over. That's why it's nice to have so many results and matches in a year, so you get a solid idea of like normalization across all the numbers. But yes, above 60 is getting a little silly. At their height, just to put into context, though, Daughters were getting up to nearly 78% win rate at the back end of AOS 2.1. So at least they've come down somewhat. Flesh Eaters are a little bit that figure, because Flesh Eaters were a book before the new book came out. That if you see a lot of these 1 and 0, a lot of that was happening prior to the Battle Tome release, because these results are after December, but also Flesh Eaters, I think, came out in end of February, beginning of March kind of thing. So if we look at Flesh Eaters since their book was released, their win percentage is actually closer to 70%.
Okay, all right, solid. I think that's good news. Next...
No, it isn't.
Knock Who's There says, so these FEC guys are basically the All Blacks of Sigmar. Effectively, yes, they are unstoppable. Hi, Tomb King Tristan. I hope you're doing well. Just getting the tree man. So glad I didn't have to find 2.7 million Citadel wood bases. Says Restov. Yeah, we're all happy about that. Is it a balance of book quality and player quality? Writes this scriver. It's a mixture of things. Also, events is also a key. Event packs, Age Sigmar, all the TOs have got an inconsistent feeling about whether or not to use realms, and that can grossly affect stuff, as can some of the battle plans and the choice of battle plans for events. But the stats don't lie, and it's pretty much across the board, which is good, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, we're looking at we're not just looking at the UK, and you could say, well, events are this way, and we're looking at every event that gives us numbers from New Zealand to Australia to Sweden to the US. So the more data you get, the more numbers you get, the more you get an actual realistic picture of what performance is, and this is regardless of player, because the more data you have, player becomes less relevant because you're looking at a broader spectrum of numbers, essentially.
Yeah, let's again throw a big shout out to Legions and Gash players sat there with 15% of the overall 5-0s, which is pretty crazy still. Just because something superseded them doesn't mean Legion of Nagash are not still absolutely bananas good. The ability to bring back whole units for one command point is comfortably a very poor piece of game design, and it has a massive impact inside of games. So that's why we're talking about a crazy army that's doing something stupid, because they, again, have a very stupid rule that do something stupid, to give them 20%. Legion of Nagash have also got that, and their consistency filters all the way through, where they are the best performing army at getting 4 and 1s, and they're the second best performing army at getting both 3 and 2s, and then 2 and 3s. But again, they are very popular, so as they filter through to final tables, it's likely that they're going to do well. And they've been used 169 times, and they're still sat at a 57% win rate, which is pretty crazy. And then if you look at, and Flesh Eaters were used 92 times. Let's look at some of the other stuff. Skaven, they were used 74 times, so 4.6%. They're sat there as well on a 57% win rate. I don't know if that'll increase. But I think that how many times they're going to go 5-0 is going to increase realistically. Deepkin, again, they've been used 80 times, and they have gone 5-0 4 times. But they've, if you track it down, they're at that top end as well, sat on 59%. Stormcast, 48%, which is exactly where you want a faction. You want factions to roughly sit around there. 48% is really good as a kind of number. That doesn't mean that they're terrible. It means that they're pretty good. They're average good, which is fine.
Yeah. If we're talking fullback, we're never going to see a table where everything's 50%. That's like La La Land, to be honest. What you want is a tight range.
Yeah.
So you could say plus or minus 2%, or in my opinion, because it's a dice game and there's a lot of randomization, I would say a plus or minus 5%. So we're talking, if I was to say this game is balanced, we'd be looking at numbers from
45 to 55%.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that would indicate a decent health within the game.
Yeah.
Because what it's saying there is everybody has a chance to win.
Yeah, so, and it's worth noting, so if anything doesn't fit within that 45 to 55% bracket, then there's probably a problem either end, which is good. Mick Wendell, thank you very much for subscribing. 5 months in a row. Horse86 says, Bat Boys rolling sixes for love, baby. And also thank you for subscribing for 4 months in a row. And Brad Glover says, I just can't wait to take my Skaven to more events so I can tank the stats. Don't forget, you can always take these armies and tank the stats. That always helps us out. So please do that if possible. And then Dan Hammer CG points out that his Scourge Privateers are the perfect 50%, mainly because only he's taken them, I think.
Just once.
Right, I want to talk about some of the newer books. Blazer Corner have been taken 111 times at events, and they're sat in that lovely 50% mark, so we're okay with you guys. Host of Sinesh, before the new books come out, been taken 37 times, but sat on 60% as a win rate, so really up there already. So they've got a strong mechanic, which I think is good. Gits, 86 times they've been taken to events. They're sat at 44% win rate. So they are at that very bottom end where we're talking... They're in that line of best fit, but very much close to being not good. But I think that there is a build. It's just, I think that's a book that people are having to learn and is a skill-based book. So it's going to take more. Nighthaunt, 66% of the time, sat at 42%, so really in a tough spot. But I think that there's some work that they could do. Seraphon, they haven't had a book in a very long time. They really need some love. All hail the bloat toad. 51 times they've been taken, 44% win rate. But we have seen them take an event out at Adepticon. We've also seen them just do okay in Australia recently. So there's loads of love, really. Yeah.
Or Iron Jaws.
Yes. Mandoli says, tank the stats of Legion of Asgore, ? No, screw you, bro. Knock Who's there says, as a 40k player looking in, it's a real shame Sigmar 2.0 was looking really good, and it feels like Games Workshop got sourced and drove the zombie dragon over the edge. Well, Daughters of Cain were already there, so they've just kind of added some more people over the edge, which is nice. They're just kicking army books over the cliff, which is kind of fine. Then Legion of Asgore, I just want to talk about those guys. Taken 15 times, At least 3 of those are me.
Yeah. So the Heat 2 aren't actually in here right now. As we said, we're just waiting results to put into these 5+ tables. But what's interesting is basically, or except for the dispossessed, you've got your beard meta going on right there with Legions of Asgore, Fire Slayers, and Caradron all sitting right next to each other on this table.
But wildly different results. Legion of Asgore 57% win rate, Fire Slayers 52% win rate. But I think that they're going to increase because of their new book. And then Caradron Overlords 39% win rate.
Yeah. And Fire Slayers they're trending upwards. They were traditionally just below 50%, so we're now seeing a positive swing for Fire Slayers. And as you said, I think now the book's out, when people start playing them, we'll see their percentage just rise.
Yeah, agreed. Bone Splitters, they're sat there quite comfortably, not taken very often, 17 times, but 52% win rate, which I think is cool. Sylvaneth, with their new book on the horizon, taken 82 times, so a pretty popular army, 52% win rate. So they're in that very nice field where they're absolutely fine. If they get a boost, like we've seen with the other books, then that could shoot up. So they're already in a solid place, but getting I don't know if they need shooting up really. They're good, but as a Sylvaneth player, I'm excited. I won't lie.
Yeah. Oddly, they've never won, at least in AOS 2.2, but we've recorded. They've never gone 5 games. Sylvaneth have never won 5 in a row. They're like the classic 4-1 faction.
Yeah, they are. It's just because they're good guys. They're tree bros, right? Sneaky Dan, thank you for subscribing on Twitch. Appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who subscribes on Twitch. It means the world to us. I just want to do a shout out because I did miss them off and I didn't want to. Magotkin and Nurgle taken 88 times and they're sat there 48% win rate. So they're just doing good. And don't forget, if 40% win rate means that you're winning 2 out of 3 games at a 5-game tournament, 60% 3 out of 5. So don't be too stressed. So if your army is only sat at 40% win rate, you've only got to win 2 games at a tournament. So you're okay. And talking about that, Wanderers taken 5 times, 48% win rate. So again, you see that those armies they're pretty all right. They're in that middle place. Beastclaw Raiders, though, taken 25 times, 33% win rate. So they've got some real problems in their book, to be honest. And that's not just the stats saying it. If you take my word for anything, as an analyst of the game, they do have some fundamental problems, mainly in that they can't put hordes out to go and get objectives, and they've got very expensive monsters that don't do as much damage as they need to. In reality, they also lack wizards, so there's loads of problems. It needs an update, and I'm hoping it gets one. So yeah, I think we've looked at most of Ironjawz, the joke army at this stage, and all Ironjawz player currently just turning off their podcast and throwing their paintbrushes at the TV. I'm sorry about that, but they've got 63 times that they're here, 37% win rate. They're almost the best performing 0-win faction, but the Blades of Khorne actually get that award.
Yeah, and I think if we're talking about the kicking boys of AOS, we'd be amiss not to mention Slaves to Darkness, who are actually statistically the worst army in Age of Sigmar 2.2 right now, with only 22% wins. And they actually have a reasonable representation, as they've been used 9 times. So it's not just 1 or 2 people that have done badly with them. It's pretty much everybody has done badly with them.
Yeah. So I say hello to everyone on YouTube as well. Doom Darkness is over there. I can see him. And so is the other guys. I'm taking most of the questions on Twitch if you guys want to join us. But thank you. And if you're watching on Facebook, either watching live or watching back, give it a share or a like or leave some comments because that always helps us out. Right. AOS 2.1 versus our 2.2 comparison chart. So this is where we look at everything that happened from the release of 2.0 up till Christmas and then Christmas till now. So we've kind of broken it. We've had a mid-season break, if you will. So what do we think of this, Mr. LLV? What can you tell me?
So what I can tell you is if you discount armies that are basically less than 1% of the meta, so if you're reading along at home, take, yes, Phoenix Temple are top, but they've only been played once in AOS 2.2. So take that out and then look at those top 5 armies, and you'll see a recurring pattern here. Daughters of Cain, Flesh Eater Courts, Hosts of Slanesh, Idenef Deepkin, and Skaven. And I think those are the 5 armies that you want to. You're either on board with them or you have to beat them. I put on Twitter a few days ago that I think there's a definite line in the sand being drawn now as far as what you have to beat at events.
Yes, I would. I wouldn't disagree with that either. Truth be told, yes. And sometimes it's not so much a question. It's a question of functionality. Can your army do X? And then your question is, can your army do X better than their army can do X? It's like combat, right? If you're talking about beating the Daughters of Cain with Iron Jaws, you're like, okay, can you beat their army in combat? Because you both are only doing combat realistically. And the answer is probably no. Whereas when you throw in all these other issues like Idenef Deepkin's fly, can you screen those flying units? They're going to have a whole round of striking first. There's a bunch of questions you need to ask yourself when you go into a competitive tournament. But the big one, I don't want to run away from it because I'm not a coward. Look at that 20% increase there for Dispossessed. Well done, you idiots. Yeah. I'm not running away from it, even though I deeply hate you.
They have fallen below Legion of Asgore again, though, because somebody only won 2 games. So although Dispossessed Dan had won his 3 games and given him a 60% win rate, Dispossessed are now only down to a 50% win rate.
Yes, yeah, that's true as well. I want to say big shout out to both the Git Mob and Ever Chosen players, just to annoy LLV. Please keep taking your Ever Chosen armies, even though they're rubbish, and take them to events. And yeah, so there we go. That charts. That's us done. That's us wrapped up.
I think a good point, Rob, is and the reason we do multiple charts like this is when you start to see recurring patterns in data. So, when we look at podiums and it's X, Y, and Z, and then when we look at 5+ wins and it's X, Y, and Z, and now we look at win percentages and how that has changed and it's X, Y, and Z, when you've got a concurrent theme as far as it's the same, in this case, faction, that's essentially solidifying the data. So it's not like we've just looked at one portion of the numbers and tried to create a story here. That this is the narrative of AOS 2.2. It's just what it is right now. So.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean the game's in a terrible place. That isn't because the game has been in a terrible place several times before. Vanguard Wing is a really good example. Change Host is another good example. But don't stress if you're one of those armies that's got does suck. And as a Chaos Dwarf player, I will attest that my army is also one of those armies. But there is so there's 2 things to take away from this. Number one, you might get some new army books, but that's a silly hope. I hope we actually get an improvement just because randomly. I also would say that the line of argument that everything will balance out in the end is also false as well. So don't attach yourself to that. But the games that you win, so whichever army you choose, if you choose your army because you want to win games, we've given you the tools to help choose that. And if you want to play games with the army that you like, regardless of how you're going to do, or you're frustrated that you won't win, just consider that those wins that you get are going to be more worthwhile. They're going to be more. They're going to be more difficult to achieve. But there is a skill in Age of Sigmar. There's a movement skill. There's a pile-in skill. There's a skill to deployment. There's a skill to ranges. There's a skill to double turns and you can just look for, and the ally system is a really beneficial part of that. There's a skill that, yes, you're not going to win 5 games with your army potentially, or maybe you could, but every victory that you get hard fought over those armies that can do the 60 to 70% win rates is going to be more worthwhile. So just see it as a challenge. Like you are the 300 battling at Thermopylae. You are, you are against it. You are the English at Agincourt. You've got, although technology was there, so I think they needed a points hike on those longbows. But there's something to play for that isn't just going 5-0. There's something that you can increase the worldwide stats for your faction. That's quite cool. And I know one of the great things that's happening at Bobo is they're going to do best in faction. So it's not just you've won the event. It's you're the best of your faction, which is cool, right? And not Grand Alliance either, it's faction. And I think that's an excellent thing that they're doing. I'd like to see that replicated around the world as well. And I know there's loads of faction. I know that TO's already put their hearts and money on the line to make events happen, which is wicked. But even if it was just a certificate they printed out, it would make people feel really good, I think. So don't, just because the stats do say that there's a demonstrably terrifying top end, walk into the darkness with your not as great army and your band of brothers that suck, and then every time that you win, high five everyone around you. You've got to beat the Daughters of Cain, you've got to beat the Flesh Eater Courts, and if you do, you're doing great. So don't give up hope. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't want this to be a negative experience for people. I want people to know that at least should give it a try, because it's just trying.
Yeah, there are more things to play for, and at least we're in a position where we can actually identify that. Like, if this was a year ago, we'd just be going, oh, conjecture, these armies are horrible and the game's in a terrible place, right? So at least now we can identify the big bads and say, and identify, oh, I'm not winning as much as I should be with my Iron Jaws, what's going on? Well, now we can look and say, well, actually, you are winning as much as you should be, and you're actually doing better than you should be. So well done, you. So, there's always the other side of the percentage as well, right? So just because Daughters or Flesh Eaters win 65%, it still means that they can lose 45%. So it's just a case of you trying to be that person, giving them that 45% as far as their loss percentage is concerned. So.
Yeah, it's just, you can do it. The Twitch chat is just full of people being dicks about my army. Even Nightbot has been hijacked, one of the moderators. I don't know which one at this stage, because you can listen to the wonderful Mr. Dan Sway do our Australian in Canada show, where I'm sure he'll rag on my army as much as I'll rag on the terrible dispossessed. If you type in !Legion, it says an entire army of shittos commonly played by people with criminally bad taste who love 50 Shades of Grey. I don't even like it. I like the second book. So that's fuck you. Nappy says, question, would the change removal of the double turn be better for the game? It's not called the double turn, it's called the priority roll, and no, in no way, shape or form. Anyone that thinks that it would is wrong, and they're wrong in 1,000 ways that I've talked about on the show before, and I'll talk about on the show again. But if you are not playing with the double turn, you don't know how to play, and play more games
as well. That's not the issue. I think people.
It's not the issue. It's not the issue. No, it's not even close to the issue. No, if you lost because of the priority roll, you're bad. Anyway.
No. Well, there's a confounding issue where things like Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven are making that priority roll, I think, a little bit even more. It's more important to a degree, right? To be fair, but it's not the priority rolls issue. That's the Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven issue. That's the thing that needs identifying and fixing. Yeah. So I think as a community, if we're pointing fingers at a priority roll saying, well...
No, we're not. No one is. No one is. Conversation done. Anytime the conversation ever comes up in your local community group, your Facebook group, or anywhere in the world, and someone brings up the priority roll, shut it down. Shut it down in like rains of fire. Yeah, I want you to go full Lannister on it, the rains of Castamere. Yeah, I want you to scorch the earth of the opinion that is an issue. It's what makes the game great. It's wonderful. You Go, I Go is boring. Like, it's just like you just know what's going to happen. It's so much more intuitively interesting. Like, the only thing that could make it get better potentially would be if it went to your roll off per unit. If it went I want everyone to be absolutely on my team on that conversation. And it's one of those that, how some people are like, there's two sides to the conversation. No, Disagree.
No.
Wrong.
We don't want to be 40k, is what we're saying, right?
Yeah. Oh no. I'm not criticizing 40k. I'm just saying.
I am, but yeah, okay.
Nappy says, thanks, Honest War Game. I'll have to show this VOD to my friends. Yeah, feel free. Feel free. No one, and also no one in the top end of Wargaming. So all the competitive players are ever having that conversation, and they're playing each other, So anyway, right.
Yeah, when you actually, there was some on stream recently, and I'm sure there will be at Bobo and going forward. But when you look at those tight games with two top players, the priority role actually becomes another tool in that arsenal, and you'll see them give turns away, or you'll see how important it is, and especially with endless spells in the fray, right? Like,
Yeah.
Now you've got these mortal wound output things running around. It's like, do I give the turn, or do I keep the turn? So it's another layer in the game and in the psychology as well, which is always fun.
Good. All right. So some questions come in. Broken hand minis, initiative based by unit would be awesome. There would be some epic turns that would too, with stuff like characters rolling double ones and such. Yeah, it would be absolutely. How does the comparative assessment of Swiss system we use impact army rankings? That's a good point, Charles, as well. That's actually something we could talk about in another show after I've done some research. I wouldn't be able to offhand leave enough of a comment. And also Dan Hammer CG says, I put in the Facebook group, which is the largest Facebook group for Age of Sigmar, and it was 8-1 majority against any conversation about changing the priority role, so it just shouldn't come up. How good is the double turn with FEC? Says Horus 86, and this is laughs in mortal wounds. That's fine, but how good would a gunline be against the FEC 2 turns? It would be great too. So you have to always think about it like that. The rounds are not random, and hence collective comparison is impacted by top tiers playing other top tiers. It's a good conversation, Charles. We'll have that at some point, absolutely. Right, LLV, thank you very much for doing the stats, as always. I'm very excited to see you next week in the UK live.
Yes, yeah, I'll be flying to the UK this evening, so I'll be landing tomorrow at some point, and I think I'll be down your neck of the woods the week after for Bobo. So yeah, it will be very interesting.
So again, don't forget, if you are going to watch, we're going to be doing the live stream coverage of the Bravery One British Open, so the largest Age of Sigmar event in the world to date. So a record breakers, which is going to be very exciting. So the Honest War Game, we're doing the live coverage like we have before. Please tune in. It would be awesome if you guys have yourself some watching parties, get some beers in, get some Barbies on, wrap up and have some mulled wine and eat a moose if you're over in the Nordic countries. If you're in Canada, I imagine, have some maple syrup and watch it with the other Mounties. I don't know. Just Mexico, Rodrigo. If you're listening, if you guys want to, just sit back. I can't imagine anything. The picture of them sat like in a Mexican city, having some tequilas. That's on in the background. It's just hilarious. Yeah. So please do that. But yeah, just everyone come and hang out. It's going to be very fun. I know loads of the Irish lads are coming over, Scottish lads. It's going to be an amazing event. So you should check it out and watch the coverage, because it's probably the most excited I've been for a very long time about an event. It might be the event to talk about for a long time. So make sure you watch it. Everyone, everyone get your goon bags out and have some fun. LLV, thank you very much for doing the show.
Thank you very much. I think I'd be amiss without calling out my round one grudge, which you nicely rolled up for me on the show yesterday. So Warhammer TV Kerry, ex-Warhammer TV Kerry, I'm coming for you. I'm going to bring my Dispossess, and I'm going to kick all of your squigs in the face. That's what I'm going to do. That was really bad. I'm bad at trash talking.
You are bad at trash talking. That's true. Right, everyone, thank you very much for watching the show. We'll see you soon. Have a great day. And don't forget, kill as many dragons as you can. And rats. Kill dragons and rats.